What we found inside that building was not a technology company.
In prison worth a fleeting ambition to change one's life. How did two 24-year-old young men with bright futures stumble into a massive distribution ring with over 130 kilograms of meth-loaded guns and an undercover operation as thrilling as an action movie? This is the shocking truth that was just uncovered in the city of Houston. How did the police force cast their net to take them down, and what heavy price was decided? Let's uncover the whole truth right now.
Don't forget to hit like, leave a comment, sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel to support us.
$63 million stolen.
On a day in March 2026, authorities in the city of Houston officially announced the sentences for two local youths involved in a large-scale meth distribution operation.
Edgar Prudencio Ruiz and Damian Lee Gutierrez, both 24 years old, each received a sentence of 13.5 years in federal prison. This operation not only dismantled a drug packaging mill, but also sent a clear message about the authorities' determination to keep citizens safe. The closely coordinated efforts between units have proven that persistence in investigation can timely prevent heartbreaking consequences. The process of taking down the ring began with initial clues carefully gathered by law enforcement. On June 17, 2025, the two young men conducted a transaction of 5 kilograms of meth to an undercover police officer. After the transaction was completed, they moved to an apartment and continued their operations. Before conducting the raid, investigators closely monitored the activities going in and out of the apartment at 1311 Merriam Avenue. A K-9 unit quickly alerted after sniffing unusual traces at the left passenger door. The search of the box in the vehicle led to the discovery of 10 one-gallon-sized bags filled with meth. More dangerously, 2 loaded 9mm handguns were found right in the car, one near the ignition and the other equipped with an extended magazine located under the passenger seat. These details show the high level of risk the two youths accepted when participating in this activity. Gutierrez, during his statement, admitted to the drug quantities, leading to a search warrant for their residence, where police confiscated approximately 122 more bags, each weighing approximately 1 kilogram. In total, authorities confiscated nearly 137 bags containing about 133 kilograms of pure meth, with an estimated street value exceeding $200,000. Such a large quantity not only directly harms users, but also threatens the safety of the entire surrounding community. Young people are often drawn into wrong choices due to economic pressure or environmental influences, but the consequence is always a massive loss of freedom and future. This sentence reminds everyone that the short-term path to making quick money can lead to long-term irreparable losses. The trial took place over 2 days with evidence presented clearly and convincingly. The defense tried to argue about the lack of fingerprints on the evidence to prove the two defendants did not possess the drugs.
However, it took the jury less than an hour to deliberate and pronounce both guilty of conspiracy and possession of drugs with intent to distribute.
Judge Andrew S. Hainan, who directly presided over the trial, carefully weighed all the details, including the drug's origin from Mexico and the frequent communications regarding pricing as well as delivery.
During the sentencing hearing, the habit of carrying loaded guns during transactions.
This reminds the community to pay more attention to their living environment and immediately report unusual activities to protect future. Each defendant received a sentence of 162 months in prison, equivalent to 13.5 years, along with 5 years of supervised release after serving their term. Along with a kilogram press device was found in the closet. The story of Ruiz and Gutierrez makes us reflect on the journey of young people in modern society.
Many people at the age of 24 are building careers, studying, and starting families, but some choose a path leading to prison due to a lack of awareness of the risks.
The bedroom was also filled with evidence featuring a table with hundreds of stamped glassine envelopes and over 70 bottles labeled as xylazine. However, subsequent analysis determined these bottles contained a mixture of diphenhydramine and procaine rather than the real venom veterinary drug.
Authorities coordinated closely to carry out this operation, including the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, leading the way with support from sheriff's offices of neighboring counties and cities.
The success of the case lies in the persistent surveillance from the undercover transaction to the search and evidence collection. This proves that the law is always working to protect citizens from illegal activities.
The amount of fentanyl, about 3 kilograms, equivalent to over 6 pounds, has an estimated black market value exceeding $500,000.
Have you ever wondered how a momentarily wrong decision can change an entire life? Youths like Ruiz and Gutierrez might initially think it is just a small transaction, but quickly get sucked deeper into a larger network. The lesson here is the need to forge willpower and a clear awareness of the value of health and freedom. All face charges of possession of a controlled substance in the first degree and third degree, along with using drug paraphernalia in the second degree. When looking at the massive quantity of drugs seized, we clearly see the potential impact on hundreds, if not thousands of people, if these illicit substances had spread into society. Ramon Pena Jimenez faces a bail of $100,000, while Wanderlei Garcia's is $50,000. The community needs to join hands to raise awareness through preventive education programs, especially for teenagers. Every individual has a responsibility to protect themselves and those around them by choosing a positive and healthy lifestyle. What do you think if we could prevent similar incidents by strengthening community support for the youth?
Sports activities, life skills clubs, and psychological counseling can help young people find meaningful goals instead of falling into the spiral of crime.
The 13.5-year sentence is not only a punishment but also an opportunity for the two defendants to rethink their lives while serving their time. Many people after getting out of prison have chosen the path of rehabilitation, becoming role models for positive change. Authorities have proven the effectiveness of modern investigative methods combining technology and human resources. From K-9 units to secret surveillance, every step contributed to the overall success.
This encourages the community to trust and cooperate with law enforcement agencies when spotting unusual signs.
A safe society is built upon the vigilance of each individual and the close coordination among related parties. Let's think about the role of education in drug prevention. From a young age, children need to be taught about the true harms of addictive substances, not only through theory, but also through real-life stories like this case.
Parents should take time to listen to their children, clearly understand the pressures they are facing, and guide them to the right choices. Schools can organize seminars inviting experts to share experiences, helping students realize that a bright future lies in academic efforts and self-development rather than in risky shortcuts. When these two young men were arrested and sentenced, many families in the Houston community surely breathed a sigh of relief because a major drug supply had been cut off. They emphasized the use of all legal measures to eliminate the direct threat to residents.
Each of us can contribute a small part by reporting suspicious information to authorities or participating in awareness-raising campaigns. This is a vivid testament to the effectiveness of collaborative work in protecting community security. Have you ever wondered why some young people are so easily drawn into drug trafficking activities? It may stem from difficult economic circumstances, a lack of guidance from family, or the influence of bad friends.
Whatever the reason is, the consequence remains the same: the loss of freedom, health, and opportunities.
Educating on the sense of collective responsibility will contribute to creating a collective strength against drugs. During the trial, the jury quickly reached a conclusion based on solid evidence showing that the justice system operates fairly and transparently. Judge Hainan, with abundant experience, weighed all factors to deliver an appropriate sentence, emphasizing deterrence and education. 5 years of probation after prison is a period for the two defendants to prove their change under the supervision of the law. This is an opportunity for them to learn new skills and prepare to reintegrate into society responsibly.
The Houston community and surrounding areas like Pasadena, Stafford, and LaPorte have witnessed the effective coordination between police forces and the DEA.
These efforts not only dismantle a ring, but also send a powerful message that there is no place for drug crimes in a civilized society. Every citizen can learn from this case that perseverance and cooperation can bring positive results for common security. Imagine if every family educated their children about the law and morality, the crime rate would decrease significantly. What do you think about the community's role in drug prevention in residential areas?
Spreading educational information about the harms of drugs can save many lives, especially those of young people who are confused about life.
We need to build an environment where everyone feels supported and encouraged to pursue healthy goals instead of seeking short-term escapes through illegal substances. Looking back at the entire case from the undercover transaction to the search and sentencing, we clearly see the closed circle of justice.
Two 24-year-old youths with bright futures have lost many precious years due to wrong choices.
This makes us ponder how to better support the younger generation, especially those living in high-risk environments. Employment programs, vocational training, and psychological counseling need to be promoted to minimize the risk of falling into vice.
High-purity meth causes terrible harm to the brain and body, leading to rapid addiction that is hard to quit.
Users often face mental health issues, violent behavior, and a decline in working capacity. If this quantity of 133 kilograms had spread outwards, the consequences would have been extremely severe for numerous families and communities.
Fortunately, thanks to the timely intervention of authorities, the damage was controlled at a minimum level.
If you are watching this video and feel the post brings value, please like to support the channel to continue producing quality educational content. On the other hand, the family plays a pivotal role in educating children about life values and the consequences of wrongdoing. Your support is exactly the motivation for us to spread positive messages about a healthy lifestyle together.
An important lesson from the case is the role of the family in guiding children.
Parents need to observe changes in their children's behavior and converse openly to detect unusual signs early. At the same time, society needs to create many healthy playgrounds for youths to release energy and develop skills instead of falling into negative environments.
When everyone acts together, the likelihood of successful prevention will be much higher.
Do you think drug education should start from elementary school to create a solid foundation of awareness? Or do we need to focus more on psychological support for 20-somethings facing life pressures?
Non-governmental organizations and community groups can organize workshops to share experiences from real-life cases to raise awareness.
During the investigation, authorities collected much supplementary information proving the danger level of the ring. The smuggling from Mexico and frequent communication about prices show that this was not an impromptu activity, but part of a larger network. Nevertheless, with the severe sentence, the court affirmed its zero-tolerance stance on drug crimes.
This helps consolidate people's trust in the justice system and encourages them to participate in protecting the community.
Imagine the lives of the two youths if they had chosen a different path, studying, working hard, and building families.
Instead, they have to spend over a decade behind bars thinking about their past mistakes. This story carries deep humanity because it not only punishes but also opens up hope for rehabilitation and rebirth. Many prisoners, after serving their sentences, have become useful citizens thanks to educational and support programs from the prison. The community needs to continue pushing drug prevention campaigns through media, social networks, seminars, and educational materials. Every individual can become a knowledge spreader, helping friends realize the risks before it is too late.
Change begins with awareness and small daily actions such as declining invitations to use illegal substances or reporting suspicious activities. Together we can build a safer environment for future generations.
Have you ever witnessed someone changing their life by staying away from drugs? Or conversely, do you know of any cases of getting sucked into the vortex and having to pay a heavy price?
Share your thoughts in the comments section so we can discuss and learn from each other together.
Personal stories often bring more vivid and relatable lessons than any lecture. When the judge pronounced the sentence, he took special note of the massive quantity of drugs, emphasizing that this was an important aggravating factor. Carrying loaded guns during transactions further increased the severity because it directly threatened the safety of law enforcement and the public.
The sentence is not only for the two defendants, but also a deterrent message for those who are intending to participate in similar activities. The law is always fair, but also very strict with behaviors that harm society.
To achieve the required length, we continue to explore the educational aspects of the case. First is the importance of forging willpower from a young age.
Children need to learn how to say no to temptations and find joy in positive activities like sports arts or volunteering. Parents and teachers should set an example with a healthy lifestyle for children to follow.
Let's turn the pain into a lesson so the community becomes stronger and safer. Second, the community needs to invest in support programs for unemployed youths or those facing financial difficulties.
Many cases of falling into drugs stem from economic pressure and a lack of job opportunities. If there are free vocational training courses or startup support funds, the youth will have more positive choices instead of the criminal path.
This investment brings long-term benefits to the whole society by reducing the crime rate and increasing labor productivity. Third, the role of media in raising awareness is undeniable.
Newscasts like this case, when recounted honestly and humanely, will help the public better understand the real consequences instead of just looking at the surface.
We need to avoid inciting content and focus on educational messages encouraging everyone to act responsibly.
This YouTube channel is committed to bringing such stories to contribute to building a better community.
Parents, please spend time teaching your children about life values and skills to refuse temptation. Investment in the younger generation is exactly an investment for the future of the country. Your opinions will help enrich the general discussion. In conclusion, the story of the 13.5-year prison sentence for the two Houston youths is a profound lesson on the consequences of participating in drug trafficking. It emphasizes the value of fair law, the role of the community, and personal responsibility in building a healthy society. Each of us can contribute to preventing similar incidents by raising awareness, educating the younger generation, and cooperating with authorities. Let's act today so the future will be better. If you find this content useful, please like the video to spread the educational message.
Please subscribe to the channel and turn on the bell to receive notifications about similar posts.
Together, we can create positive change in the community by sharing valuable knowledge and experience.
Secret Service team. The facility contained server racks with over 200 terabytes of active transaction data and a communications hub that had been used to coordinate the Phantom Collective's
A cargo
dark web
container sits
narcotics
on Pier
marketplace
4, taps the locking mechanism and swings the
countries.
doors open. The air that
In
rolls
Miami,
out carries no
cryptocurrency
trace of
option
soil or
brokerage,
steel.
over-the-counter, cash
It smells
crypto
like
conversion,
diesel and
operating out of a
acetone.
private office
Stacked
in a financial
floor to
district
ceiling
tower,
behind a
was
false
found to
wall
have
of shrink-wrapped
processed over
tractor
$60
parts
million in
are
conversion
312
transactions for
vacuum-sealed
Phantom
bricks
Collective
stamped with a
linked
blue
accounts over
hummingbird
4-year
logo.
period. The
Field
broker,
test positive
a
for
licensed,
cocaine.
regulated, fully
Estimated
documented
street
financial
value
services
north of
operator,
$40 million.
had known exactly what he was doing.
And clipped to the inside of the
He
container
was in
door,
custody
tucked inside a
before
magnetic
5
weatherproof
LOA
case,
M.
is a handwritten note.
And in San
6
Jose,
digits,
the Meridian
a
Cloud
time,
Solutions
and the
data center,
initials of a
42
United States
rack
Coast Guard
facility that had
lieutenant
nearly been
commander
wiped
still
remotely
listed
from
as active
NovaTrust's
duty.
5th floor before
This moment
agents
ended an
intervened,
11-month
was now fully
investigation.
under FBI
Here's
control.
how it started. Rewind to January. A joint task force
The data
quietly
it
assembles in a
contained, still
windowless
intact,
briefing room at
was
the
being
FBI's
described by forensic
Jacksonville field
analysts as the
office.
most comprehensive
No signage
criminal
on the
financial
door.
record we have
No
ever had the
interagency
opportunity
letterhead.
to examine in a
Just
single
12
season.
people from
When
4
the 6-hour
agencies,
operational window
FBI,
closed,
Coast
the
Guard
numbers were
Investigative
released
Service,
internally.
D, and Customs and Border
$263
Protection,
million
seated
in
around a
confirmed
table with a
stolen
single code
cryptocurrency
name
assets,
printed on the folder in
traced
front of
and
each chair. Operation Iron
An additional
Current.
$87
The
million
target is a
in Phantom
46-year-old
Collective
port
linked
security
laundered assets
supervisor
identified
named
across
Lieutenant
seized
Commander
accounts and
Derek
hardware
Sable.
wallets.
19 years in the Coast Guard.
61 locations,
Assigned to maritime
secured
inspection
44
and cargo
individuals in
compliance
federal
at Port
custody
Weller,
across
one of the
14
busiest
states.
deepwater terminals on the
3
southeastern
international
seaboard.
arrests coordinated with
Sable's
foreign law
service
enforcement.
record is clean.
Server
His
infrastructure
evaluations
containing
are
over
exemplary.
340 terabytes
His security
of criminal
clearance is
transaction
current.
data, fully preserved.
On paper, he is
the
untouchable.
digital underworld had
3
taken more
questions
damage
were
in 6
keeping
hours
federal
than in
command
the previous
awake.
6 years.
First, how were multi-ton cocaine
3 weeks
shipments
later,
clearing
in a
port
secure
security
federal review
inspection
facility
at a
operating out
facility
of the
with
FBI's San
round-the-clock
Francisco
federal
field
presence?
office, The analytical
Second,
team working through the
who
Ghost
was
Ledger
altering
data
the
was reading
container
a second
audit
story,
logs,
not the story of
because the
NovaTrust.
digital fingerprints
Not even
pointed
the
to
story of the
credentials
Phantom
that
Collective.
belonged to uniformed
The
officers.
story of who had been paid
Third,
to look the other way.
why had 3 separate confidential
The numbers,
informants
when they emerged from the
in 3
transaction
separate
logs,
trafficking
were not what
cells
anyone wanted to
independently used the same phrase when
11
describing their supply
individuals with
chain.
active
They
regulatory
called it the
credentials,
window.
law enforcement
No one in
appointments,
federal
or
command
judicial
knew what the
positions
window
appeared in
was.
Ghost Ledger's
Not
internal
yet.
payment logs.
Keep
as
watching,
recipients
because those
of funds
answers
from
come.
Phantom Collective linked
And none
accounts.
of them are
Payments
comfortable.
structured carefully,
At
never large
3:12
enough to
a.m.
trigger automated reporting
On a
thresholds.
Thursday in November,
Always routed
iron
through at
current
least
goes
3
loud.
intermediate wallet
4
addresses.
simultaneous
Always
breach
timed
points
to
across the
coincide
port
with
district.
periods of regulatory
Location 1
inactivity
is Pier
around
14
NovaTrust's
itself.
most exposed
14
transactions.
FBI agents in
Among
tactical
those subsequently
configuration
charged,
moved through
a
the
senior
container
examiner
yard under
at a federal
blackout
financial
conditions.
technology regulatory
No
body,
overheads.
whose office
No vehicle
had been
lights.
responsible for
Only green
NovaTrust's
spectrum
annual
NODs
compliance
and
reviews
whispered
for
radio
5
checks.
consecutive years.
They reached
And
the
whose
target
personal
container
cryptocurrency
and
wallet
find the
showed
312
consistent
bricks
incoming
behind the
transfers
false
from
wall,
Malta.
the magnetic case, the initials, the hummingbird stamps. One agent
Registered
photographs
Ghost
the handwritten
Corporation
note,
that appeared
and the
17
metadata
times
on
in
that
the Ghost Ledger
photograph will later
architecture.
become a critical
state-level
evidence
financial crimes
timestamp.
investigator
Location
whose case
2 is a
assignment
harborside
logs showed a
maintenance building
documented pattern
400
of
meters
deprioritizing
east. A Coast
complaints
Guard
against
K-9
NovaTrust,
unit enters
linked
through a service
entities
door
over
at
a 3-year
3:18
period.
a.m.
Complaints
Inside a
that,
utility
had they been
locker
followed
registered
through,
to Petty
would have
Officer
triggered a
2nd Class
federal
Nolan
referral
Pruitt.
as early as
Agents
4
recover a burner phone, a
years
laminated
before
cargo
the
schedule
operation
with
was
11
discovered.
dates circled in red,
2 technology sector
and a fold of
lobbyists
cash
whose
totaling
work on federal
$8,600
cryptocurrency
in
regulation
non-sequential
legislation had
50s.
incorporated,
The phone
word
is
for
still
word in
warm.
several provisions,
Its last
language
outgoing
drafted by a
message,
law firm
sent
that
at
Ghost Ledger
3:03
identified
a.m.,
as a Phantom
reads one
Collective
word:
legal services contractor.
stall.
And,
Location
most
3,
devastatingly,
the Port
a sitting
Operations
federal
Control
magistrate,
Room.
Judge
A
Renata Hollis
CBP
Crane,
digital forensics team
appointed to the
clones the
Northern
primary
District of
server while
California's
2
Digital
analysts
Commerce
pull container
jurisdiction
tracking
5 years
records from the
prior,
past 14
whose
months.
encrypted communications
What they find
recovered
is a
from the
pattern that
seized
makes one
Atherton
of the
laptop
analysts set down her
showed a
coffee
4-year
and not
record
pick it
prior
up again.
consultation with
Every
Phantom
6 to 8
Collective legal
weeks,
coordinators
a single
regarding
container from the
procedural
same
scheduling
overseas
of
routing code
cryptocurrency fraud
is
case
logged
hearings
through
in
an
her
inspection queue overseen personally by Sable. Every one
4
of those
years.
containers passes inspection in under 9 minutes.
There were honest people
The port
in that
average
system.
is 41
Many of them.
minutes. Every one of
Investigators
those
who had
9-minute
flagged
inspections
NovaTrust and
occurs
watched their
between 2
referrals
and
go
4
nowhere.
a.m. That was the window.
Compliance officers who had
Location
submitted
4
anomaly
is
reports
Derek
had been
Sable's
told
residence.
The matter was under review.
A 3-bedroom house in a quiet
Indefinitely. One
subdivision
senior
11
Secret
miles
Service
from the
financial
port.
crimes investigator who had
At
opened a
3:22
preliminary
a.m.,
file on
agents
NovaTrust's
breached the front
transaction
door
patterns
and
2
find
years
Sable
before the
standing in
operation
his
was
home
discovered,
office,
and had
still in
subsequently been
uniform pants
administratively
and an
reassigned
undershirt,
to a different division
feeding
without
paper into a
explanation.
cross-cut shredder. The shredder is still
That
warm when they
investigator
pull
sat
the
in the
plug.
review room and looked at the
Sable
Ghost
says
Ledger
nothing.
logs for a long
Not
time.
a word. Stay with me, because what they
Then
reconstruct from that shredder
quietly,
changes
"I
the
wasn't
entire
wrong.
trajectory of this case.
I was
The digital
managed." That
excavation
statement
phase
went into
begins
the
at
federal
dawn.
record.
Forensic
system had not
accountants
failed.
and signals analysts
been
converge
purchased.
on a temporary
The
operations
badge had not
center
been
set up in a
inadequate.
leased
It
warehouse
had been
near the
counterfeit,
port.
in the hands
The
of
seized
people who had
phones,
sold their
the
authority
cloned
to a criminal
servers,
network
the
that
shredded
understood
paper.
very precisely
Every thread
how to
feeds
use
into a
institutional
single
credibility
analytical
as a
framework.
shield.
And slowly, like a photograph developing in a dark
Now
room,
the shield was gone,
the
and the system
architecture
would be
becomes
rebuilt
visible.
from the foundation.
Sable
with the
didn't
names of
operate
everyone
alone.
who had sold it on record.
He
and in
operated a
custody.
system.
As the indictments expanded,
Shell
and the Ghost
Company
Ledger
number
architecture
1,
became fully mapped
registered
in
in
the weeks following
Delaware,
Operation Dark Circuit.
called Meridian
The
Harbor
larger picture that
Consulting,
emerged was one that
LLC.
went far beyond
It
Silicon
invoiced
Valley,
the Port
far
Authority
beyond
for security
cryptocurrency,
assessment
and
services
far beyond
that
the
were
12
never
individuals
performed.
arrested in the initial
Payments routed to a second entity, Coastal Allied
RICO
Logistics,
Takedown. The Phantom
registered
Collective's
in
financial
Panama
network
City,
connected
Florida,
to a global
which in turn
cybercrime
dispersed
infrastructure
funds
whose
to
reach
7
was documented
individuals,
across 22 countries.
5 of whom held
Its
active
dark web
federal
marketplace payment
credentials.
processing operations had
The money
over 6
moved in
years
amounts just
facilitated
under the
purchase and
reporting
distribution
threshold.
of narcotics, fentanyl, cocaine,
Always,
methamphamphetamine,
without
through
exception.
encrypted online
Someone had
markets that
studied the
served
compliance
customers across
rules
the
and
United
turned
States
them into
and
a
Europe.
map.
The cryptocurrency
And then an
infrastructure that
analyst on the
NovaTrust had been
financial
built to
team
provide,
finds a single
mixing,
wire
laundering,
transfer that
legitimizing,
doesn't fit the
had
pattern.
processed payments connected to narcotics transactions
$42,000
involving, by
sent
Dia's
not to a
preliminary
shell
estimate,
company, but to a personal account belonging to a name no one on the task force recognizes. A woman named Renata Voss,
over a 4-year
listed
operational
occupation,
period.
judicial clerk,
3 tons.
11th Circuit.
Paid for digital.
The room goes quiet. This next part, focus. Sable wasn't the architect,
advertised
he was
itself
the
during
bridge.
technology conferences,
And whoever
and
sat
rang
on
a
the other
digital
side
bell
of
to
that
celebrate
bridge
new
had
user
access to the
milestones.
federal
The routing
judiciary.
infrastructure showed connections between
Investigating
Phantom
that
Collective
name
linked
would require
accounts and financial
authorizations above
entities in
field
Eastern
office
Europe,
level.
known to serve as
By the following
cryptocurrency
Tuesday,
banking
the operation
infrastructure
scales
for
to a
narcotics
level no
trafficking
one in the
networks,
original
with
briefing
operational
room
ties to
anticipated.
cartel-adjacent
61
distribution
agents across
systems in
3
Mexico
field
and
offices, 2 Coast Guard
Central
tactical
America.
teams, 4D mobile enforcement units,
Not direct connections.
simultaneous arrest
Not a single
operations
wire
in
transfer
Jacksonville,
from a Sinaloa
Savannah,
cartel
and
account
Mobile.
to a NovaTrust wallet,
In
but a
Jacksonville,
documented
a
chain
port
of
crane
financial
operator named
intermediaries,
Dwayne Gillis
each one a
is
layer
pulled
of
from his
deliberate
cab at
separation,
4:47
each one
a.m.
functioning to move
He's wearing
value
2
from
cell
criminal
phones around
narcotics
his neck on
proceeds
lanyards,
into
both
clean
ringing.
digital assets and back again.
In Savannah,
That
a retired
connected the
customs
dark web
broker
drug
named
economy
Arthur
to the
Pell
gleaming tech
answers
campus
his
in
front
Soma,
door in a
and the final
bathrobe
file
and
recovered
immediately
from Darian Cole
asks if
Voss's
this is about
air-gapped
Sable
laptop
before
revealed what
agents have
Project
said a
Ghost
single
Ledger had
word.
ultimately been
In
designed to
Mobile,
become.
a Coast Guard enlisted man
A
named
document
Terrence
labeled Phase
Okafor
4.
is detained at the base gate at 5:23 a.m.
Encrypted,
trying
but
to leave
decrypted
post with a
using the
duffel
master
bag
key
containing
recovered from the Meridian cloud
$14,000
servers.
and a Venezuelan passport
A
that does
long-form
not belong to
operational
him.
blueprint,
16
written in technical
arrests
language,
in
but
72
translatable into a
hours.
single chilling concept.
Over
NovaTrust
400
had been
kilograms
designed
of
to evolve
cocaine
into the
seized
primary
across 3
financial
port
clearing
facilities.
infrastructure for the Phantom Collective's
31 bank
global
accounts
dark web
frozen.
operations.
The headlines write themselves.
Phase 4 was
Federal
a 5-year
agents
plan
dismantle
to
port
achieve
smuggling
regulatory
ring.
legitimacy,
Coast Guard
federal
officers
licensing
implicated.
as a digital asset
Biggest
exchange,
southeastern port corruption
international
case in a
operating
decade.
agreements,
Command
institutional
exhales.
investment partnerships
For about
that would have
11
placed
hours.
Phantom Collective financial
Because at
infrastructure inside the
9:15 p.m.
regulated,
that Tuesday,
federally
an
supervised
encrypted
financial
partition
system.
on Sable's personal laptop finishes decrypting. And inside is a spreadsheet. Not of shipments.
Permanently.
Not of payments. Of names.
Legally.
44 names arranged in a hierarchy that includes
Invisibly.
not just port officers and crane operators,
just
but 3 local
infiltrating
police
the system.
lieutenants, a county
Becoming
prosecutor,
it. That
a Coast Guard
realization,
captain 2
documented,
ranks above
evidenced,
Sable,
filed
and a
into federal
contracting
court
officer
record,
at the Pier
was the one that
14
kept the senior
to a
analysts
secondary
working through the
warehouse
night,
without
weeks after
passing
the
a single
arrests.
unit. A county
Because what they were
prosecutor
looking
had
at
declined
was
to
not
file
simply what
charges
had
in
been.
2 previous port
It was
theft
what had
cases
almost been.
that, in
The
retrospect, were
system
clearly
had not been
connected to the
redesigned
pipeline.
yet, but it had been scheduled for
Evidence room
reconstruction
logs at a
by people
CBP
who understood it
substation
completely
showed
and
4
had
sealed
every intention
containers of
owning it.
seized narcotics
The
that
real
had been
cost
checked
of
out
what
for
Darian
court
Cole Voss and the
preparation and
Phantom
never
Collective
returned.
built cannot be expressed in
The
seizure
signatures
totals
on the
or server
checkout
counts.
forms belonged to an officer already on the spreadsheet. And then the franchise reveal. Buried in Sable's encrypted files, analysts find a 40-page
victims.
document with no title.
Real people, a retired
It reads
electrical
like a
engineer
manual.
in Phoenix who had moved his savings
Step-by-step
into
instructions
NovaTrust's
for
highest yield
replicating the
digital
port
asset
infiltration
product,
model
because
at
a
other
financial
facilities.
advisor, later implicated
Recruiting
in the
criteria.
investigation, had described
Payment
it as the
structures.
safest institutional grade
Counter-surveillance
crypto exposure
protocols.
available. A small business owner in
Communication
Cleveland who had
templates.
used NovaTrust
And in the
to hold
margins,
operating capital
handwritten
because the
annotations
platform's
referencing
regulatory
3 other
compliance
port
credentials,
cities,
the ones
none of
purchased with
which were
payments
part
to
of
the
the
examiner
original
whose name was in the
investigation.
Ghost Ledger,
The
had
network
made it
wasn't
appear
just
indistinguishable
operating.
from a legitimate financial
It was scaling. Iron Current had exposed the prototype.
institution. A community
production
credit
models
union in
were
rural
already
Oregon
running
that had
somewhere
allocated
else.
member funds to a NovaTrust
One
product
name
as part of a
appears 17
digitalization
times
strategy,
across the manual,
trusting a
the
platform that had been
spreadsheet,
presented to them
and the
by a
financial
lobbyist whose
records.
fees were paid
It
indirectly
is never
by the
written in
Phantom
full.
Collective.
Only a last initial and a
And beyond the
5-digit
financial
personnel
victims,
code.
every person who
Analysts
purchased
trace
fentanyl
the
through a
code
dark
format
web
to a
marketplace
Department of
whose
Defense
transactions had been
credentialing system.
processed, mixed, and
The
legitimized
clearance
by this
level
infrastructure.
associated
Every
with that
family that
code
lost
is
someone
high
to an
enough that
overdose of
confirming
narcotics
the
whose digital
identity
payment
requires
trail ran at some
authorization
point
from the
through a
Deputy
server rack
Attorney
in Soma.
General's office.
Every community flooded
As of
with
the latest
methamphetamine or
sealed
cocaine,
filings,
whose distribution
that
network
name
had
has
been
not been
financially
publicly
serviced at
disclosed.
distance through deliberate
That name
layers
is
of
still out
complexity
there.
by a platform
Somewhere
that
in
sponsored
Jacksonville,
technology
a
conferences
woman named
and
Dolores
published quarterly
Pruitt,
impact
Nolan
reports
Pruitt's
about financial inclusion.
Comment the word current if you want the full breakdown
Power
of the
does not
financial
always
network
need
and the
open
sealed
violence.
names in Part 2.
Sometimes it
Share
only
this with
needs a
someone
pitch
who
deck
needs
and a
to
compliance
understand how
certificate.
smuggling
Sometimes
works
it
when
builds
the
its
smugglers
fortress
wear the
inside
uniform.
institutions designed to contain
Subscribe
it,
because Part
speaks
2
fluently
follows
in
the
language
unnamed
of
credential
innovation and
holder.
disruption,
And what
waits
investigators
patiently while it
found when they
purchases,
finally
one
opened
by
that
one,
file
the
will make
mechanisms
this that
that
were
were
never
supposed to stop it.
performed. Payments routed to a second
That
entity,
is what Operation
Coastal
Dark Circuit
Allied
found
Logistics,
inside NovaTrust's
registered in
fifth
Panama
floor.
City, Florida, which in turn dispersed
That is
funds
what it
to 7
dismantled.
individuals,
And that is why
5
this
of
story
whom
matters
held
beyond
active
the numbers,
federal
beyond the
credentials.
indictment counts.
The money
Beyond the
moved in
seized
amounts
servers and
just
the
under
arrested
the reporting
operators and the
threshold.
magistrate in handcuffs.
Always.
Because
Without
the Phantom
exception,
Collective
someone had
did not
studied the
succeed
compliance
by being
rules
invisible.
and turned them into
It
a map.
succeeded by being credible.
And then an analyst on the
It succeeded because it
financial team
understood that in
finds
the
a
modern
single
world,
wire
the
transfer
most dangerous
that
criminal
doesn't
does
fit the
not hide in
pattern.
shadow. They give keynote addresses and accept innovation
sent
awards
not to
and
a
make
shell
sure their
company
platform
but to a
has
personal
5-star
account
rating in the
belonging
App
to a
Store.
name no one on the task force recognizes.
The
A woman
investigation is
named Renata
ongoing.
Voss. Listed
The
occupation,
Ghost Ledger
judicial
architecture
clerk,
continues to
11th
yield names.
Circuit.
The Phase 4 documents
The
have
room
opened
goes
lines
quiet.
of inquiry that
This
extend
next
into
part,
federal regulatory
focus.
bodies, legislative
Sable wasn't
staffing
the
networks,
architect.
and
He was the
institutional
bridge.
investment firms.
And
They're only
whoever
now
sat
beginning
on the
to
other
understand
side of
what they
that
were
bridge
connected to.
had access to the federal judiciary.
This is not
Investigating
the
that
end.
name
It
would
is the
require
beginning of the accounting.
authorizations
If you are
above
still
field
watching
office
this,
level.
if you made it through all of it,
By the following
then you
Tuesday,
understand
the
why this
operation
story is
scales
not
to a
simply
level
about
no one
stolen
in the original
cryptocurrency. It
assembles
is
in a
about what
windowless
happens when
briefing
criminal
room at the
intelligence
FBI's
is allowed to
Jacksonville field
operate at
office.
the highest level of
No
a
signage
legitimate
on the
industry,
door.
with
No
institutional
interagency
protection
letterhead.
for long
Just
enough to
12
become
people from 4
structurally embedded.
agencies: FBI,
Tap
Coast
like
Guard
so that more
Investigative
people see
Service,
this story.
D, and Customs
Not
and
because
Border
it is
Protection,
entertainment,
seated
but because
around a
the
table
mechanisms
with a single
described
code
here are
name
real
printed
in
on the
principle.
folder in front
They
of
are
each chair.
prosecuted in reality,
Operation
and they
Iron
depend
Current.
entirely on the
The
assumption
target
that
is
the
a
public is not paying
46-year-old
attention.
port security
Comment exposed
supervisor
if
named
you believe
Lieutenant
digital
Commander
financial
Derek
crime
Sable.
at this scale,
19
protected
years
by
in the
purchased
Coast Guard,
institutions,
assigned
should
to
be
maritime
pulled into the light
inspection and
held
cargo
fully to
compliance
account.
at Port Weller, one of the
Share this.
busiest deepwater terminals on the southeastern seaboard.
Schools can organize seminars inviting experts to share experiences, helping students realize that a bright future lies in academic efforts and self-development rather than in risky shortcuts. When these two young men were arrested and sentenced